Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here, Golden Opportunities Coaching. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you who are seasoned veterans of what we do around here. What we do around here is we break things down into discernible ways for you to understand. We work with psychological, emotional, and coaching related topics. If there's a topic you'd like to see covered, please feel free to comment below. And we usually can do that within a couple of days. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share on social media so we can help as many people as possible. Today we're going to talk about a dozen or so, maybe a few more, signs that you're dealing with an abusive parent. I know I've done audios like this before. However, there are many people who are struggling with this, either with adult parents or people that are just coming into adulthood, and sometimes we have minor individuals who are listening, so people under 18 who are listening who struggle with this. And so there's a great number of reasons why a person would turn into an abusive individual, physically, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, mentally. They can all be forms of abuse, and there's a number of reasons why a person would go in that direction. That would be another video, though, but these are signs. So if a parent floods a young person with attention, this can be a sign of abuse. And what I mean by flood with attention isn't healthy boundaries. It's I need to know everything you're doing every moment of every day. And obviously, if we're talking about a 2 or 3 year old, that's normal. We want to protect these children from being dangerous to themselves or others. But with the growth of age, independent play, independent study, and social skills, development of friendships, and all of these things need to happen. And preferably somewhere around the age of not majority, but the age of accountability, which some people say is between 7 or 9, depending on the emotional maturity of the child. There needs to be a shift towards giving children privacy and autonomy to make their own decisions, and hopefully by about 18 years old, although I think that number is crawling to mid-20s in a lot of cases, the young person can make their own decisions and feel that they are able to navigate life successfully. Now, a parent who is flooding their child with attention and emotion and focus, they are often called helicopter parents. These are individuals who determine their self-identity and self-value simply by the success their children are having, and therefore they don't really know how to have healthy, meaningful relationships for themselves outside of their relationships with their children. Their parenthood, their parentage, actually becomes a form of self-identity, which is exceptionally dangerous because A, when that child is grown, the parent really doesn't have an identity anymore and they have to reinvent themselves, and B, the child doesn't learn how to make meaningful decisions. The second one is when parents make their children's feelings not matter. Look, feelings are valuable, and every person's feelings are valuable, whether they be positive, neutral, or negative. So if a child feels like, I want to punch somebody in the face, gee, what brought that feeling up? And similarly, gee, I'd like to pursue art someday, or I feel sad, or I feel alone, or I feel like I don't fit in, or ostracized, or I'm extra happy, or I'm extra jazzed. All emotions are valuable. And so an abusive parent will, in fact, make a child feel that only the emotions they agree with, and sometimes not even that all emotions from the young person don't matter. Teaching children that their emotions matter and their emotional reactions matter even more than how they feel is responsible parenting. And an abusive parent doesn't care about responsible parenting. They care about getting what they want when they want it. And they will use manipulation of emotional state to create that. Now, one way they do that is through the silent treatment. Children need reassurance. They require a certain level of connection. And so, yes, you might be doing something that ticks your parent off, but a responsible and mature parent will eventually be able to either let it go, depending on the maturity level and age of the child, or have a rational, reasonable conversation about the infraction of what the person did, what the child did that was incorrect or improper. Now, when that conversation is not able to be had, it's a great indicator that that parent, especially through using silent treatment, is trying to control the situation. A loving parent, while often protective, will not seek to exert control over every situation. Doing so, even in what they perceive to be a loving way, can lead to sheltering a child and often makes transition into adulthood more difficult. And doing it in a harsh way can lead the child to feel that they do not have a voice, and ultimately that can only express themselves when their form of self expression is in alignment with what the parent thinks, feels, or believes. Many parents who are abusers will play the victim mode. They will blame the child for things that a child shouldn't have to think about. I went through this as a young person because both of my parents had untreated mental illness and also were unwilling to admit that they had responsibility for their own choices. And so victimhood was a big deal in my house. Now, a parent who is a victim will blame the child for things that a child has no control over, such as, you cost too much money, or if I didn't have you, I could be free, or if I wasn't so worried about money, I could be happy. All of these are things that a child, A, cannot change, and B, doesn't have the emotional nor mental capacity in most cases to understand that it's not their fault, which means the victimhood mentality expressed by the parent actually will give the child a complex that in reality, if they didn't exist, the world would be a better place. This is, and oftentimes begins, the cycle of anxiety and depression that so many young people feel today. It doesn't matter if a parent feels that way. They, just as the child, are entitled to their feelings. And there are many parents who do regret having children or do regret the decisions they've made. Finding a healthy outlet for them is an important part of our society that I think is understated. However, when it is stated in front of the child, it is always damaging and, in fact, often can lead to years' worth of emotional instability and hardship for the young person. The next one is violent threats. Physical threats, verbal threats, all of these threats will lead to the same result. The child doesn't feel safe around the parent, which in turn makes the child question if they are ever safe at all. This can create social avoidance. This can create delays in speech, both for young kids actually verbalizing themselves and for older kids or teenagers, the willingness to express themselves even when they are in a safe environment, because the questioning of what constitutes a safe environment is always on the mind of a child who has been reasonably threatened or consistently threatened. Now, the next one here is favoritism. Look, there are going to be parents who have children that they connect with more than others. That's part of just social development, and I don't think there's a way to avoid potentially having a favorite child or a child you get on better with. However, the expression of favoritism is a damaging thing because that non-favored child is going to feel like they constantly have to earn love and change who they are in order to be loved. This can open the gateway to allowing abusive romantic relationship, allowing a person to be usurped or emotionally used and dominated or manipulated in any way outside of the family environment, and ultimately that leads to challenges. It also creates the craziness that is gaslighting, which is making a person wonder if what they're feeling, experiencing, and dealing with is ever valid or whether it's true. And so when a person can no longer distinguish the concept of truth from a lie, they are going to stay in their head very much. And if you always wondered if anyone would believe you about what went on in your house, or if you always wondered whether what was happening to you was actually happening because it seemed crazy or insane, and you were told it didn't happen that way on a consistent basis, even though you were right there witnessing it and living it, that is gaslighting, and it can have a long-term effect on how the young person going into adulthood views the world, because then the wonder of, can I trust what I feel, can I trust what I think, can I trust what I believe, is a central force in the psychological development of the young person turning into an adult. Now, the next one is being overly critical. proper criticism, constructive criticism, is helpful and needed for children of all ages, even adult children. And in reality, parts of us are always going to be children, even if we're like 60, because there's parts of us that wish we could go back to childhood, which is totally normal. I mean, who wants to work all day, right? But if a parent is constantly overly critical and the child or young person or young adult is constantly chasing approval, and the target is moving, think like if somebody said hit the bullseye on this archery target, but then somebody moved it and they moved it and they moved it again, sooner or later the belief would be, well, I'll never hit the target because I never know where it is. I'll never hit the target because I don't know how close it is to me, and I can't find my equilibrium or my balance. That's how emotionally being overly critical can affect children of all ages. And so over-criticism becomes dangerous. The right amount of criticism, which needs to be sprinkled with compliments and reaffirmation equally, so that the criticism has as much value as the affirmation, and it leads to balance, is a hard thing for parents to learn. But abusive parents really don't care about helping a child to feel secure, and so they aren't going to be focused on this. Now, the control of money. This is a common one for parents who either are entitled or exceptionally poor. Now, the reason exceptionally poor is because a lot of times poor parents who come from poverty mindsets, blame their children, but may or may not verbalize blaming the children for their state of poverty. And so, as soon as that child can begin to earn money, somewhere between, I don't know, depending on where you are, 9 to 12, 13 years old, and there are children as young as 9, 10 years old earning money, babysitting or mowing lawns or whatever, but the parent believes the money is theirs. And so now there becomes this relationship with control of money being another way of abusing and showing power over the young person. And when parents constantly control money, the young person never learns to accurately and effectively manage their own money, which creates problems in adulthood. Now, helping to mentor a young person and child into handling money properly, good idea. However, always controlling how they spend that money and or not allowing them to make mistakes or have splurge moments is a really bad idea. It sets the young person up for issues with finances well into adulthood. The next one is absentee parenting. So there's multiple ways to be an absentee parent. Physical absence is one, emotional absence is another, and a lack of willingness to place the child as priority, which is most common. Now, there are individuals in life who, unfortunately for them and for their children, have children and are not emotionally prepared, mentally prepared, financially prepared, or a combination of all of the above. And in some cases, it is in the best interest of the child if that person steps away from the relationship. While this is not taught societally, scientific research has shown that if a parent is incapable or unwilling to shift and put positive focus on the child, it is better psychologically for that relationship to be terminated until such point the child chooses to make one as an adult, and or the parent chooses to act in a different way toward the child. Unfortunately, we live in a society that all too often forces adults to be parents when they aren't emotionally equipped, and this creates just as much harm as if the parent wasn't there at all. It cancels itself out. However, absent parenthood is dangerous because of things talked about in an earlier video, and it's also dangerous because the child has many questions that go unanswered, which allow them to tell their own negative narrative story about the reason that the parent isn't present, which then creates a guilt complex. Guilt complexes obviously are a bent towards negative emotions based in sadness, guilt, and feeling unworthy of love, unworthy of attention, unworthy of time, and other things. Guilt complexes are often brought by abusive parents because they truly believe within themselves that if they didn't have the child, their life would somehow magically be better. Now, there is a percentage of times where literally having a child does negatively impact the parent at such a level where there may be some truth to this statement. However, saying it to the child or expressing it in the child's direction not only is unhealthy, it will have a lasting impact on the child until they tell themselves a different story about their childhood and see themselves as capable in spite of their parents' use of guilt and condemnation being a central force in their life. The next one is parents who humiliate their children. This is extremely common. The desire for social acceptance is something that many parents, who, especially young parents, struggle with. And if they didn't get it when they were younger, they often carry that resentment and feelings of inequality and discomfort into how they parent, which ultimately means that when their child doesn't behave in a way that they feel is appropriate, that they feel is acceptable, they will often humiliate the child as a way to help what they believe is help the child from making the same mistakes they did. The problem is that when a child doesn't feel safe and secure within their relationship with their parent, not only is the humiliation bad in terms of socially and emotionally, but they also begin to wonder if they can ever trust anyone at all, which creates a whole litany of other problems. The second to last one is the abusive parent will make the child earn love. And I think we talked about this a little bit earlier in the video, but let me clarify just a little bit more. If love is determined by how someone behaves, rather than unconditional acceptance that understands that ultimately sometimes behavior will not match intention, and intention matters more than behavior, and that life doesn't come with a handbook, so therefore it must come with a learning curve, and that love should be given regardless of behavior, even if praise is not, is a difficult reality for many parents to understand, especially parents who didn't have strong parental figures themselves. So, when a parent engages in behavior which is ultimately causing the child to feel they need to earn love, it also creates a scenario where the parent often strips the ideas of independence from their child and thereby creates a codependent or extremely one-sided relationship where the child actually becomes a mock for the parent, as in they learn things from outside, they learn the way they wish their parent would behave, and they behave in that manner toward the parent so as to create a model that they wish they could actually have from the parent themselves. This creates problems for a variety of reasons, not limited to the reality that sooner or later the child will feel burnt out and thereby be more likely to be susceptible to anxiety, depression, and other negative emotions because they don't have the structure of a loving parental environment. In any event, these are the signs of an abusive parent. If you're dealing with that, even as an adult or as a person who's just turned 18, please feel free to reach out. There are ways to recover and tell yourself a different story about what you've been through, but you first have to be able to accept what you've been through and look at it in a new light. Till next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.